Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. Going to go ahead and connect with our friends over on Instagram so they can be a part of our conversation today. And last but certainly not least, going to connect with our friends over on Amazon so I can introduce you guys to today's guest. Have a great one for you guys. And this is great for whether you have children or not. I think this topic is going to really be something you guys enjoy. And we're now live on Amazon Live with Cyrus Webb Presents. If you guys are new to us on the Amazon platform, welcome. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the book by our next guest. So excited to welcome Dr. Samantha Sweeny to our broadcast today. Had a chance to read her book you guys see here, Culturally Competent Kids. And the subtitle of the book is Raising Children to Thrive in a Diverse World. We're going to really focus on that part, not only for kids, but also for us as adults as well. I love the way Dr. Sweeny is able to address this in a way that all of us can be able to get something from it and ask some important questions for us too. Dr. Sweeny, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Look, the pleasure's definitely all mine. Now, my regular audience knows, Dr. Sweeny, I don't have kids of my own. I did help raise my nephew. But one thing I think about this book is when it was first pitched to me is how timely it is, especially when it comes to the idea of diversity and also having important conversations with kids. So let's begin there. What has it been like for you, not only the work that you do, but also through this book to talk about the importance of the diverse world that we live in?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that I've been, intimately involved in for years, throughout my really professional career.
Mhm.
And even though in my professional work I'm a psychologist and I treat individuals for things like anxiety and depression, culture is weaved throughout our entire lives, and so these topics do come up in the therapy space. But then they come up in our personal lives as well. So I think in all facets of our personal and professional lives, these types of things come up. And certainly here, I'm based in Washington, D.C., and certainly this topic has been on, I think, a lot of people's minds lately.
Right, right. And that brings up a good point, and maybe even a great place for us to start. I've made a note of something you said in the book, kind of talking about what a culturally competent mindset is and what it's not, Dr.
Mhm.
Sweeny. I want to share that with our audience because I thought this was really interesting. You start off by saying, as you were addressing this topic, it may seem like having a culturally competent mindset is just about caring about issues related to diversity, power, and privilege, oppression, and marginalization. But then you go on to say this: that is certainly a big part of it, but not all of it. Having a culturally competent mindset also involves examining your reasons for wanting to engage in this work. So let's begin there with you. What is it that made you say this was something, Dr. Sweeny, you wanted to engage in and share?
hmm I mean, I grew up in a household that was more diverse than my high school, for example. I I my biological father died when I was very young, and my mother remarried a white man, and people can see that I am African American Black, and he had two, young sons who were white. So I had, we were kind of like a modern day Brady Bunch, and we had my mom and my sister and I who were Black or African American, and my dad and his two sons who were with us part time, who were white. And so I grew up from a very young age knowing that this topic was important.
Mm,
What really spurred me on to write the book was is in the midst of the George Floyd murder, and
mm,
the us being inside, and there being protests on the street, literally coming down the street, right down from my house and my office. I recognized how much this was a topic that was timely and that people really wanted to talk about. I had parents coming to me saying, like, I want to talk to my kids about this. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to begin the conversation. I don't know how to continue the conversation. What do I do? And
mm.
so this book really grew out of those conversations. But it's been something that I have known was important my entire life.
Yeah. And as someone like myself, Dr. Sweeny, in reading the book, what I really appreciate and I want our audience to get is that you simplify this in a way that you don't make it difficult for us to one understand what it is you're addressing, but also you give us such practical, easy to understand ways that we can be able to implement what you share. Has that been part of the praise you've been hearing for the book since its release?
Yeah, I think that that's part of the issue with this topic is that
Okay.
care about it, but they don't know what to do. No one's telling them what to do. And I also think that, this topic so frequently is marketed towards adults, which there is some of that in this book,
Mm-hmm.
but people want to talk to their kids about it. They want
Yeah.
to infuse this into the dinner time conversation. They want to figure out how to make sure that their kids understand that this is a topic that they find important, and to help their kids have their own relationship with and interaction with topics of diversity. And so understanding ways to do that in a practical way that's based in science, that's based on behavior, the basics of behavioral science, that was really important to me. And that's been true throughout my career, that, it's great to talk about these lofty ideas that we know are important, but when it comes down to it, people want to know what to do.
Right.
That's really what they want. They're like, this is all great, but tell me what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to make sure that people had some of that background information, understanding why it's important, but then also having a path forward so that they knew, if they wanted to bring up this topic of conversation, that they knew ways to go about doing that.
I love that. I'm gonna give some shout outs here. Dr. Sweeny, hello to you over on IG. Pele, hello to you. Mystery Mom 40, hello to you. Self Love Sage, I love that name. Thank you so much for joining us over there on IG as well. If you guys have any questions or comments for Dr. Sweeny or the conversation, definitely include us in the chat. We do have the chat open on all the platforms, and I am monitoring over there on X as well. If you guys have any comments there, you know what I thought was so when you just mentioned about the science, and that was something I knew because when the book was pitched to me, there would be that aspect. I didn't know you would make that part easy too. A lot of times, when we start getting to the science part, it can kind of, your eyes can kind of glaze over, Dr. Sweeny. But the way you incorporate it in this book makes us understand, one, why it's important to start early when it comes to having these type of conversations, but also two, the appreciation for just the way we live and how that also teaches even more so than what we say. Talk to us about that aspect, about the science. What was it like for you to have this conversation about diversity and what it looks like to be culturally competent, but also how the science backs it up?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a psychologist, and so I try to base what I do in general in science.
Hmm.
I think some people think that us therapists sit around and we just like chat all day, but it's based in science.
Yeah.
It's based in treatment, and so I really wanted to incorporate that because it's part of who I am as an individual, as a professional,
Hmm.
and when we're thinking again, like I was saying earlier, I really want to emphasize the idea of what parents could do, but I didn't
Right.
want those to just be, things that sound good. I want them to
Right.
be something that actually could be beneficial in ways. And so I have my own knowledge base, but did additional research to make sure that the suggestions that I added to the topic, the different activities to do, were based in basic behavioral science. So like how to, help people change their behavior, how to understand like how to change people's thoughts in a way and how that translates to behavior. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And so to infuse some of that information into the book, I thought was really important in order for this to be not just a topic that sounded good, but also one that would actually be helpful and hopefully yield results.
Mm. I love the fact that you bring up something that I think we all have figured out at this point, Dr. Sweeney, and that is our environment teaches us a lot. That's why it's so important for parents or those around children, even those of us part of the extended community of kids, kind of and be actively involved in that. Talk about that because I love the fact that you address. Yes, we can talk to kids about things that we see, but how important it is for them to be able to get that information from us, before the world kind of shapes what their view is of what the world should be like when it comes to diversity.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that those of the people who do not have children or like are caring for children that are not their own are just such an important part of kids' development. And while of course parents are like the primary caregivers, those like secondary caregivers for children are incredibly important to their development, can have really lasting impacts on children. So I love to hear that this is something that you are interested in. And I hope that we have other listeners who maybe don't have children of their own, but are interested in this topic, because really, those people can have enormous impacts on individuals, on children. But children's development around identity and who people are and who they are and comparing themselves to other people happens super, super early, So at birth, kids aren't necessarily noticing people who are different from them per se, but as early as 3 months old, kids tend to look at people who they have seen like in the world. So if they are African American like me, and they have mostly been exposed to African American faces or Black faces, they are going to look longer at faces that are Black than they are at faces that are white, the faces that are Asian, the faces that are Latino. They're going to look longer at those faces, meaning that they're going to be able to discriminate between different features a little bit more easily. They're going to understand those people, like what they look like, and be able to see them more clearly in some ways. So that happens at 3 months old. So when we are treating these topics as quote unquote adult topics, that's just not accurate. And so as kids are growing and getting older, they are interacting with the world and understanding their place in it at a very, very early age. And, kids as young as 8 years old have the ability to discriminate against kids that they feel are not a part of their group, that are part of their out group. And so they are learning at a very early age where their place is and what they want to carve out for themselves. And we as parents and caregivers have impact in terms of what that looks like and who we are, saying is going to be part of our in-group or our out-group. Is that based on someone that has the same interests as you and, is into the same types of things that you are and is also a really nice kid and that kind of thing? Or is it because they have darker skin than you? Or because they interact with the world differently because of their disability? Or because they have 2 moms and 2 dads as opposed to 1 mom and 1 dad, right? So we want to really think critically for our kids about what they're learning from the world, because they're learning it much earlier than we think they are.
Yeah, I wanted to share something from chapter 5 of the book. You just said something that I'm getting older, Dr. Sweeny. So if I don't bring that up now, I'll forget to come back to it. I'm going to reset real quick and say, for those who are just tuning in, welcome. Y'all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live, but we also are simulcasting this on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. Having a great conversation with Dr. Samantha C. Sweeny. She's the author of this book, Culturally Competent Kids, Raising Children to Thrive in a Diverse World. For you guys joining us on Amazon, you guys will see it highlighted in the carousel. For those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, you'll find the link there on Amazon to be able to get your copy. We'll also let you guys know how to stay connected with Dr. Sweeny as well. Before I share this from chapter 5, I want to go to what you just said, Dr. Sweeny, because it's such a great point. And it's something, too, I think I'll be 50 this year. I think this is one thing that's been very odd for me. The word diversity has become dirty, which I don't really understand how that happened, but also it's more than just skin color. And what you just said is so important. What has that conversation been like for you to share with people, that just the idea of how people now are changing the word diversity and the meaning of diversity, how that is kind of shaping especially young people today?
I mean, intersectionality is huge, right? And that's a term that was coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, I think back in, don't quote me on the exact timeline, but a long time ago, let's put it that way. And it's basically this idea that, we do not operate in silos, right? Like for example, you can see me physically, I am Black, right? But I'm also a woman. And the intersection of those things matters, right? And so my experience is going to be different from somebody who is also a Black woman, but trans, right?
Mhm.
Is also a Black woman, but may not have grown up in a 2-family household. I'm from New York, very proud New Yorker. My experience, I met lots of people like in college and that kind of thing who also Black women, but grew up in the South. Like their experiences are going to be different. And that's all a part of who we are culturally as cultural beings. And we want to understand ourselves, in all of our intersectionalities, and we also want other people to understand us with
Yeah.
all of those different things.
Yeah, such a great point. Hello to you, Randy Richardson, is joining us, another author joining us from Chicago. Hello to you over there on IG. If you guys have any questions, I see you guys over there on YouTube as well. If you guys have any questions or comments on this conversation or something for Dr. Sweeny, make sure you guys put those in the chat. Okay, so I didn't forget. So I can go now to chapter 5. Discussion talking about it. There was a point here I wanted to bring up because I thought this was really interesting. And again, this is where we as adults, parents, or just individuals around kids have to be careful. Keep it brief. This is what you say.
Mm.
Kids do not have the attention span we do. And even that's becoming subjective for us these days. Their
Yes.
brains are not fully formed, and the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that is responsible for things like attention and memory is last to develop. Therefore, if you want to provide information in relatively small doses, on average, a child's attention span tends to be about 2 minutes per age. I thought that was
Hmm.
fascinating. And then you say you can always follow up, of course, with some of the other suggestions. Talk about that because a lot of times we do try to. I know I can. Well, let me speak for myself. I get excited about stuff, and you just start talking, right? And you don't really think about, okay, are they even one understanding what I'm saying, and then two really seeing themselves in it? How important is that point been to keep it brief, Dr. Sweeny, been for you to share with parents?
Oh, that's huge. It's such an important aspect of all of this because we can't, kids are not little adults. They are kids, and they literally do not, it doesn't matter how mature your child is, they do not have the physical capacity to pay attention in the way that adults do, especially when they're quite young. Of course, as they get older and older, they become better and better at it. But most kids are just not that great at it. So if you're talking to a 6-year-old about a topic, you don't have that much time. And also, like you were saying, it's becoming less and less with the advent of phones and just being on the internet and that kind of thing, things happening like so quickly, like the age of TikTok, we get all of our information in 30-second bites. And so you really have to be careful that you're not getting that glazed look from a kid, and because then you've lost them, and what's the point anyway? You're just, after a certain point, you just start to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? The wah 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 wah, right? And so if we want our kids to really hear us and to understand the topic and to recognize that it's important, we have to give it to them in ways that they can actually consume. And so we just have to be careful about how much we're talking. I'm definitely guilty of this. And I have a teen and a tween, and luckily they're like, Mom, okay, like we're done here. I'm like, all right, I got the point. But when kids are younger than that, they're not always going to be that direct. And so we as parents have to kind of recognize when we're losing them.
Let's go back to the subtitle of the book, Dr. Sweeny, and I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. As I mentioned, we're going to let our audience know how to stay connected with you. But the subtitle of the book is Raising Children to Thrive in a Diverse World. I thought that was an interesting thing to include in that because, again, as I mentioned, the idea of diversity is definitely being challenged and in some ways vilified these days.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hope this book does to help kids and even us adults thrive in a world where the idea of diversity and its importance is changing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's define diversity.
Okay.
Diversity means difference. That's
Yeah.
all it means.
Mhm.
And last I checked, we're all different for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging those differences. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's when we assign value to different things, that's when it becomes problematic, right? I am not more worthy of anything just because I am able-bodied. I am not more worthy of, paid time off because I'm Christian, right? I am not more worthy of respect and being seen because I'm, more in the middle age, like as opposed to like an older individual who maybe is or much younger who is being ignored, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it's important just to recognize that difference in and of itself is not the issue. It's the value that we assign to those differences that is the issue. And it's very interesting to me because those people, a lot of people who are vilifying diversity and DEI and things that they don't actually understand because they're not talking about it correctly.
Right.
They have no problem like talking about differences in certain areas, right? They have no problem talking about the difference between men and women and how men are supposed to be a certain way and women are supposed to be a certain way. It's when you talk about race that they have an issue. It's when you talk about gender and sexuality that they have an issue. There are only certain things that certain people are uncomfortable talking about. Other areas of culture, they can talk about that all day long. So I just find that very hypocritical. And you know, that certain people are very comfortable with the value that they assign to certain parts of culture, but other parts they feel like they can ignore. And I just don't think that, given our history, given our present, that any area of difference should be ignored.
Such a great point and such a great conversation. By Jennifer Griffith, hello to you over there on IG as well. Really glad you could stop by. Again, everyone, Dr. Samantha C. Sweeny has been our guest. Her book is called Culturally Competent Kids, Raising Children to Thrive in a Diverse World. Again, it's available here on Amazon. Dr. Sweeny, thank you so much for the great work you're doing. Appreciate you writing this book, even for individuals like myself who, again, don't have children but work around children and, of course, have children in my family. I think it's such a great resource for people to refer back to read, and then to be able to say, hey, this is something you may find helpful when it comes to talking with others. How can our audience stay connected with you?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook with Culturally Competent Kids. I am on IG. That's relatively new. So, and that's under my name, Dr. Samantha C. Sweeny. And then I have a website, culturallycompetentkids.com. And then you can find my book anywhere books are sold. You can find it on Amazon. So there are lots of ways to stay connected with me.
Love it. Again, thank you again for the time. Looking forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Glad to do it. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll speak to you soon. Take care.